Welcome to this week's edition of my podcast, I Am Not Worthless. This week we're going to discuss math and specifically why I enjoy math and why we can't get away from it. So, starting off, when you wake up in the morning, you do a simple mathematical calculation to figure out how much more sleep you can have, how much longer you can, what's the best route to get to and from work. Throughout the day, you're also doing it, whether it's how many phone calls you're dealing with, if you're coding, if you are doing anything with weights. And then before you go to bed as well, it's, how much more sleep, how much more can I stay up? How much more can I watch? How much more movie can I watch? How much more video gaming can I do? Again, when you drive, what's the shortest route? What's the fastest route? Where can I shave off some time to get there faster? When you go to the gym, what can you bench press? What amount of weights do you want to put on to see how much you can lift, or how many squats or how many reps you can do in a certain machine? All of that involves mathematics. All of that is mathematics. Now, a lot of people, when they hear mathematics, they automatically think back to school, where they're basically in front of a chalkboard, in front of a marker board, doing repetition and problems and story problems and trains and all that. And that is a part of mathematics, but it's not why I love it. Starting off with cooking, grocery shopping. When you have a recipe, you might have to increase it if you have more people, decrease it if you have less, or change the amount because you want more or less of that particular ingredient, that particular flavor. All that's mathematics. When you go to the grocery store and you see pricing of items, stores are using mathematics to try and get you to buy certain things or buy more of something even though you might not need it. Like when they do like a buy 5 get 5, or buy 5 items get $5 off, or buy 1 get 1 free. That's using mathematics to get you to purchase things that you might not otherwise buy. When you go and try to decide which size chips, which size shampoo, or whether to shop at a warehouse store like Costco or Sam's Club, or whether you're going to go to your grocery store or Walmart, you are using mathematics to compare. Comparison is mathematics. You are trying to recognize what is the best value for you. And that's really what I would also say with regards to inflation, is to beat inflation, to beat rising prices, you need to be even more savvy and more using of mathematics to determine what product to buy or where to buy it from and how often. If going out to McDonald's, for example, cost you $4 for a meal, but you can make that same meal at home for $1.50, why wouldn't you make it at home? Ignoring the concept of time, which time in itself as well is also mathematics. Another way that you're using mathematics is when you go to the grocery store and you do your route. So let's say you need to grab chips, bread, and some luncheon meat from the deli counter. Well, you wouldn't just go randomly to an aisle to start grabbing the items. You would start either at the deli counter, work your way backwards, or you would start at the furthest item and work your way to the deli counter and then to the register. Route planning is one of the oldest mathematical problems that's been solved, that's been worked on and been analyzed, because we encounter it so often. Store layout is designed to get you to spend the most amount of time in the store, because then you are more likely to buy stuff. That is all using mathematics and using different areas of mathematics. Another way that we use it is in video gaming, in coding, in computer graphics for CGI movies. You're calculating matrices, angles, even length of time. There are plenty of video games that you have to put in a certain number of button presses or a certain combination of button presses for a certain action to occur. Again, basic coding is just putting ones, using numbers to make things happen on screen that you can't just tell the computer to do. You have to give it a code in order for it to do something. Whenever you do verification, a lot of times they will send you a passcode, a set of numbers that you have to enter in the right amount of time, in the right order, in order to verify that you are who you say you are. AI in video games, that's mathematics, that's coding, that's using numbers to make the computer do something that you need it to do. Another interesting mathematical concept is to look in nature and look at things like spirals on sunflower seeds or shells or even flowers, other flowers. You're limited in nature to an environment with so many resources. Animals decide territory based on, again, efficiency. Because you don't have unlimited energy. You have only a certain amount of energy in order to spend your day eating, and if it's the mating season, producing. So many other areas in nature show this obsession with mathematics, efficiency. You could find evidence of it pretty much everywhere. Music. Music is another area where mathematics is heavily involved and heavily used. When you're creating sound, you are using frequency. A certain amount of frequency, one way or the other, can dramatically change and drastically change what an audience feels, what an audience experiences, and what you as an artist are trying to convey. We all know the Wilhelm scream, but there's also the Jaws theme. Horror movies are notorious for various sounds and various types of sounds to create that atmosphere of tension and basically something scary is happening. We all know the heroic frequency, the heroic music and sounds that you hear and think of, heroes or even villains, like, the Imperial March. A lot of people don't like mathematics because the way they teach it in schools, the way they put it out there, is they go, here's a problem, here's how you solve it. Instead of showing people, here's how we deal with this in the real world. This is what practical mathematics is. I feel like if more and more programs incorporated practical mathematics, practical things you actually use on a daily basis, more people would enjoy mathematics. Maybe not love mathematics, maybe not go out of their way to study it, but they'd be more willing to give it a chance and more willing to allow it into their lives more openly. Another fun example is Legos. When people build Lego sets, you're looking at how many pieces, you're looking at the bricks themselves, how many studs, you're looking at how big it is, looking at the plates. You want to know what size plate you need. Mathematics is the language of the universe. Whether it's science, computer science, business, teaching, medicine, sports, fantasy football. That's pretty much all statistics. You're using stats to determine which player is the best to have on your team and hoping that you have the combination of points to win your league. When you gamble, when you bet money on a game or bet money for futures or any other form of gambling, that's mathematics. Whenever you see patterns, whenever you see weights, whenever you see quantities of medicine, that's mathematics. So that's this week's episode. Next week, I'm going to discuss video game topics. Enjoy your week, and I will be back next week.